Hey everyone, Dave Allison with Allison Wealth. And in today's video, I want to share why, as a practicing certified financial planner and enrolled agent admitted to practice before the IRS, I believe that everybody should have a revocable living trust. And so we're going to jump into some of the core benefits of what a revocable living trust does, how you can use a revocable living trust not only as an incredible tool to optimize the wealth, the assets, and the resources that you're accumulating during your lifetime, but also you can provide some privacy and protection around those assets, not only for as long as you're alive, but ultimately upon your passing. So what I'd like to do is just walk you through a visualization of how we look at using a revocable living trust and how it could benefit your financial situation. So let's jump right on in. Now, there's many different types of advanced trust that we utilize for estate planning, estate tax avoidance or reduction, or legacy planning. But what we're going to be talking about in this video is what's known as a revocable living trust. Now, the first word there is revocable. You can change the rules at any time as long as you're alive. You could change what goes into that trust. You can change what comes out of that trust. Ultimately, that trust is just kind of a written directive on, if you were no longer around, where your stuff goes, who's in charge, and what are the rules. Now, some of you might be saying, well, that sounds a lot like a will. I already have a will that says where my stuff goes. And a will is a great first step. But what a will does is it says where your stuff goes. If you have all of your assets directed to go to somebody else through a will, it ultimately needs to go through a process called probate. Probate is a court process where a probate judge and probate attorneys validate that your will is active and in good order, and that it actually is your wishes on where the stuff goes. Now, probate can be very expensive and very timely. I have one client right now that's parents didn't have their trust documents set up. They did have a will, and those assets have been hung up for over a year and a half in probate right now. And the only one who's really getting a benefit of those assets are the attorneys who are charging probate fees to try to settle the estate on behalf of the client. So a revocable living trust actually takes it one step further. A revocable living trust is a legally binding document that says where your stuff goes and then what are the rules around your stuff, so that if you do pass away, it avoids probate altogether. The person settling your estate can ultimately transfer those assets right onto their intended beneficiaries, or continue to hold those assets in trust for the benefit of those beneficiaries. So probate avoidance is one of the biggest reasons to have a revocable living trust. But remember, the key word is revocable. For as long as you are alive, you are in control. So you could control what assets are in the trust. You can control what assets are not in the trust. You can control who the beneficiaries are if you're no longer around, and you can change the rules all the way up until the day that you pass away. Now, when we think about assets inside of this revocable living trust, I want to talk about two categories of assets. The first are things that we would deem to be more active business activities that you're engaged in. So maybe you own your own business, and let's say that business is an S Corp. Or maybe it's a C Corp. It could be an LLC, or a limited liability company. Maybe you work for a different business and you're generating W-2 wages. These are things that the IRS would really classify you as an active participant in. Now, in some cases, we would want to have your revocable living trust actually own these businesses or have these businesses assign ownership to your revocable living trust if you were no longer around. Now, the revocable living trust itself doesn't do anything to mitigate taxes. Any of the income that comes into that revocable living trust is going to be taxed at your normal individual 1040 tax rates. So this is not a trust that is established to save any taxes while you're alive. For these active components of your S corporation, your C corporation, your LLC, your W-2 income, the way we're going to look at saving taxes is by seeking out deductions or credits from the income that you're generating. But again, all of these things would flow into your revocable living trust. On the other side is things that we would deem to be more passive in nature. So this could be things like your IRA that you're saving money into. It could be your 401k at work. It could be stocks or bonds or mutual funds or cryptocurrency. It could be LLCs that you own to invest in real estate like rental properties. With all of these assets, the IRS is not going to deem them as active. They're going to be passive. So there is tax opportunities when it comes to thinking about how you structure this income or engaging in things like tax loss harvesting. But again, you're going to want to make sure all of these assets flow into your revocable living trust. That might mean that your revocable living trust is the owner of your brokerage account. It might mean that your revocable living trust is the owner of your LLC. It might mean that your IRA or 401k is naming the revocable living trust as the beneficiary. So if you pass away, that money goes into the revocable living trust. You might own a life insurance policy. And again, with that life insurance policy, you might name the revocable living trust as the beneficiary. But the ultimate goal here is that your revocable living trust is that big pot in the kitchen that holds all of your assets, whether it's active business activities like an S corporation or an LLC or a partnership, or whether it's passive investments like a stock, bond, mutual fund, ETF account, a cryptocurrency account, rental properties held in an LLC. And by having the revocable living trust own these assets, it affords you privacy because you have the ability to name the revocable living trust anything you want. I could name mine the Sunshine Revocable Living Trust. And so if I were to go open up a brokerage account, I could open that brokerage account up in the name of the Sunshine Revocable Living Trust. I don't have to use the words Dave Allison or my name or my identity on that account. So for some of our clients that are worried about privacy, maybe they're in a high profile job, maybe there's litigation risk and they want to really control their privacy, they could have their revocable living trust own those accounts. Another example is your primary residence. Again, you would want your revocable living trust to own your home. They would own the deed to your house. Again, all this says is that for as long as you're alive, you control what happens. But upon your passing, all of these assets are now in your trust where you get to decide where the money goes without having to go through the probate court system and all your business becoming public. You get to decide what are the rules. When does the trust distribute money to the beneficiaries? For example, in my trust, they become co-trustees at certain ages where they get to manage the trust assets with another person who I deem to be competent. It's like setting up training wheels. And then when they reach another age, the training wheels come off and they can become their own trustee and continue to manage the trust for their own benefit. Sometimes the trust will distribute income to the beneficiaries or the kids, like when they reach age 25 or age 30 or 35. And so the amazing thing about a revocable living trust is your imagination is a bit of your limitation with how you want to create the rules and design the terms around distribution if you were no longer around. And so it provides privacy. Now, there's a big difference between privacy and asset protection. One great way to think about this is privacy is like camouflage, asset protection is like the bulletproof vest. Now, both could be quite important if you were going into a gunfight, right? Camouflage and a bulletproof vest. But a revocable living trust in and of itself does not provide any asset protection. It can absolutely provide privacy, and it's one of the many ways we provide our clients privacy on building and accumulating and managing their wealth. But when it comes to asset protection, there's things like LLCs, S corporations, or C corporations that can help provide the asset protection, which again, by pairing something like an LLC with a revocable living trust, you might get the best of both worlds in terms of asset protection and privacy. So again, why I'm such a big believer that a revocable living trust is a necessary component of the foundation for everybody's financial house is because number one, it provides you privacy. People don't have to be all in your business. If you were to pass away, your information doesn't go to the probate court system, which becomes public record. Number two is it avoids probate and all of the expenses and the time necessary for a beneficiary to go through that probate process. Number three is it allows you to lay out the rules of when you're gone, not only where your money goes, ultimately into that revocable trust for the benefit of the people you care most about, but it also allows you to appoint somebody to be in charge, a successor trustee, somebody that you have a great deal of trust and respect that will manage the money appropriately for the benefit of your beneficiaries until maybe they're old enough to manage their own money. I mean, think about if between all of your assets, your business interests, your home, your life insurance, your retirement accounts, you might have several millions of dollars accumulated. And maybe you have young children. You don't want those young children, somebody who's 16, 17, 18, 19 years of age, to get an outright lump sum of money if, God forbid, something were to happen to you. By having a revocable living trust, all of your stuff is in that trust for the benefit of your child with an appointed trustee, somebody you ultimately believe will be able to manage that until the child is of age. And then last but not least, you get to specify what are the rules. Maybe the child gets a certain amount of money at age 25, maybe 30, maybe 35. Maybe they get a reliable income stream for their entire life to cover their basic expenses. But if they want any additional money, they got to be able to prove to the trustee it's for a responsible cause. It's not to go out and buy a Lamborghini Countach, it's to start a business or buy their first house. So again, privacy, avoiding probate, who's in charge of your money if you were gone, and what are the rules. And as you're building your own empire, you're going to have active sources like S corporations, C corporations, or LLCs that you operate. You might have W-2 income. You want to seek out deductions and credits to minimize taxes, but you want your revocable living trust to either own or be assigned to those business interests. And then you're going to have your passive sources, your IRAs, your 401ks, your stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, private investments, cryptocurrency. If you have rental real estate, you generally are going to want LLCs to own those rental properties for asset protection. You're going to have your primary home, you have life insurance. Those are all things you want to make sure are funded inside of your revocable living trust so that if and when you pass away, that stuff avoids probate and your beneficiaries can benefit from it in a way that you intended. So if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out to our team at Alison Wealth. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and just know we're here to help you deliver better wealth outcomes. And I certainly believe having a revocable living trust at the foundation of your wealth strategy is an integral part of your long-term success.